Okay. Now, correct me if I'm wrong that we got the number Dalet on page Yud. Is that right?
We got to page, 1 second. I think we're in Yud Daled. Does that make sense? Yud Daled? No, 1 second. Not too far.
Well,
we got to Daled. I don't know why. Did I move this? I don't think I moved this. Somebody must have moved this.
I try to write it in. So I have it written in on the 8th of a number Dalet here. We just were at the beginning. We're really pretty much at the beginning. Okay, so I'm gonna read the top part here, just on number bet here, or just start from the top altogether, and then we're gonna go down to number Dalet. So I want to make sure that we're not heading into too deep outer space here. So it says, it says Shar Tanta. That's where we're at right now. This is the first parak.
Yep.
And it says Var Ata Inyanim, so now we explain what's pshat over here in these words Tanta, which we know what he's going to explain. He said, Danke ein mitzius tzir kumus adam ba'olam shalo yihibo klalos arba bechinas elu. Now look at his words. He says the form of the stature of any concept which is called man, and now we're talking about Adam Kadmon, Shalo Yehiabo Klalos Arba Bechinos Elu. But he says all statures have these 4 different qualities. Asher kol of them kol etzilos, that have all the etzilos. The kol olamos. Now olamos are categories of we'll get to it. Veduhem. First one is the name Av, which he says has a special spelling. So what he means to say is that Yud-K, Vav-K could be spread out into 10 letters, which is Yud Vav Dal. This is called the Milui of Yudin. Then he says Hashem Sag. He says that's the same thing. It's the Milui of Yudin, except that in the Vav there's an Aleph. And then you have the Shem Ma, which is what they call the Milui of Alafim, because all the Miluim except the Yud are in Aleph. And then there's the Shem Ben Kazeh, which is called the Milui of Hayin.
Right.
Okay, there's only 9 letters. The first 3 have 10 letters. This one only has 9. So let's go to number Dalet, and we'll read now. We'll move down below, and we'll read the black print, and then we'll read the light print too. So he says, "V'hine elu arba chavayos hanechlokos ba'arba miluyim ha'elu." So now we have a word miluyim. Now they're divided into 4 different miluyim of the name Havaya. Him bechinas Taamim. At the same time that it goes like this, there's a concept of the Taamim that goes along with the Shem Av bechinas the Kudos, that the Shem Sag bechinas Tagim Shem Ma bechinas Osia Shem Ben. So there's some equivalence there. So he said the El Bi'arnu ki Shem Havayan Nachloch la'arba miluyim, and he said, and we're going to call this by the name of Asmab. That's what it's called, Asmab. Now, if you look and you can corresponding to these 4, let's say you listed them one on top of the next, the Yeshlam Arba Bechinas Tanta, Taamim, Nekudim, Tagin, and Osios. So the first part, which is the Taamim, Himekuvenis, so if you had again, it would line up, Keneged Shem Bavai B'milu the Yudin, Shuhu Shem Av. We call this Av. This is Gematria 72. Shuha Shem Arishon Ma'arbech of Zamiluyim and this Karma. This is the first name of the Arbech Amiluyim in this Karma, which is Av. Babachinach Ashniya he Babachinas in the Kudos, Bihim Mekuvan Keneged Shem Sag. Shuhu Mimilu Lasheni Ma'arbech Amiluyim Avaya. Babachinach Shlishis he Babachinas Atagim. Shehim Bekuvandas Keneged the Milu Shlisha Shu Shema. Varabachinach Revius, so the 4th one, he Bebechinas Osia Shuhu Bekuvandas Keneged the Milu Riavi, which that is that 4th Milui, it's the Shem Ben. Vova Shanitan Keneged the Kanos as the or, so that we given to call the name Bishnei Mini Kanuyim, 2 different types of Kanuyim. So in other words, all of these different aspects, and we really don't know exactly what they mean exactly. He says, but he's going to give us an anatomy lesson. So we have the asmab, oba ba'arba, tamim, nekudos, tagin, and osios, which we call tanta. So now we look at number hey. Okay, number hey. Number hey, we call echad me'elo ha'arba chavayos kolam makulam. So each one of them, the tamim, for example, have a tanta within them. Kolam makulam. V'yesh b'kol the vayim mechem bechinas tamim nekudas tagin nosius. Those are words of the Rav. Kashem shekol chavaya nechlechas the arba beloyim havaya, which once again are asmab. Gemo kain kol echad me'elo arba meloyim, nechlab gam kul arba meloyim. So each one of them has an asmab within the parts of the asmab. Zeh ba'ofen sheshem av atzmo kolu ma'arba shemos shehem as av da'av, sag da'av, ma da'av, and ben da'av. V'chein sag kolu ma'arba shemos shehem av the sag the sag, ma the sag, and ben the sag. V'chein al zer haderech nechlochim shemos the ma and ben, they all say the same thing. There's going to be an av to ma and so on and so forth. And also ben. Call echad v'chem la'arba shemos, each one of them into 4 different names. So he said, if you count them up, then you're going to get 16 different aspects here. Ki call echad ma'arba meloyim nechloch la'arba, because each one of the 4 gets divided into 4. V'chein al zer haderech call echad min tanta. So in the same way, each one of the tanta nechlov gam kul la'arba b'chinas tanta. Kagon tamim to tamim, nekudim to tamim, tagid to tamim, v'osios to tamim. Bechin b'bechin the nekudos tagim osios nechlokim kol echad bechem la'arba b'chinas tanta. So each one of them going to be a tanta. Both in sheshem av. Let's say for av, the av to av is the same thing as the tamim to tamim. B'shem sag to av, who the nekudos to tamim. B'shem ma to av is the tagid to tamim. V'shem ben da'av hu osius the tamim, v'chein mischalkim kulam al zer haderech. Any questions? Straightforward.
Nope, this is above my pay grade.
What do
the sound? I mean, so far he's saying something that, I mean, I guess meaning the idea of that the bechinas are within each other makes sense. He still hasn't explained really much about what each bechina is.
What was the last part? What is what? He wasn't explained
what each thing is.
Okay, well we're gonna go for an anatomy lesson. Try to calm that that thought down. So he said, "V'hina karkafta shel zecha Adam." So let's talk about the top of the skull of this man, of this primordial man, this Adam Kadmon. Shehu rosho ad makom b'chinas aznayim shalo, comes from the top of his head all the way down to the level of his ears. Hu nikra b'chinas shem av. That area is the av part. V'hu b'chinas so the tamim shabo. So this is the av, which is also the tamim. So it's an anatomy lesson. So you're from the top of the head down to the bottom. Im hiyosha gam b'chinas zu levada kolula b'tamim nekudas tagid enosis. So just remember that. This is the area of the tamim, but never forget that it's actually divided up to 4 little parts. That is tamim nekudas tagid enosis. But we don't really talk about this. We don't have, the Rav says, the Tiv says, we don't have permission to talk about the air, the light. I'm getting my digestion here. We don't have permission to talk about the area between the top of the head and the ears. In those 4 names, there are 16 different aspects. So also the tanta can be divided up, so there's 16 of them. Okay, I don't know, something just went on there. Okay, but so now these 16, he's saying something here I think is maybe a little more significant, but I'm not sure why. He says, now through these 16 different aspects, they actually create a, I'm thinking that they're madrigos. They're madrigos. And so the concept of a madrega is that you start at the top and you go down to the bottom. So this gives you an idea of how a flow pattern starts here. What we're trying to do is we're trying to bring the light of the Ein Sof Baruch Hu into the lower worlds. We don't even know what the lower worlds are, what he's talking about yet, but that's the general idea. You say it too. Now remember, Ak is a film or a membrane or a filter or, I don't know, a masach they call it, over the light of infinity. So basically, when you're looking at the very top part of it, you're looking at the most infinite part, and it becomes on the end of it. When you get to the end of it, then you're mamish in, or the pneumistic part of it, you're mamish in the Ein Sof. We're going to talk about it. So he says the reason why is because Shuha Makar Litzias his galos kala oris halalu, because this is the fountain from which all of the lights and all reality that we live in right now comes from. So now he explains like this. The highest level in the column of Ak, Shuhu Madachilas Rosh, the Ak is from the beginning of the head of Ak, which we said before, the Karkafta, Va'ad Bechinas Aznayim Shalom, until you get to the level of his ears. Hu Nikra Karkafta, this whole area, we're going to call this by the name of Karkafta. V'sham Hu Bechinas Shem Av, and that is where you find the Av. V'kevin Sheshem Av Hu Hashem Ha'elyon B'Yosef, so this is the most pneumistic a name, and we can talk about it in other places, but we'll just say what he says right here. He said, "B'kol ha'arba ha'meluyim d'Shem Havaya," all of the different meluyim of the Shem Havaya. V'chichu merames gam came the bechinas Taamim, so therefore automatically it's going to refer to Taamim. So now you're talking about the Taamim area of the head it's the head of Ak. Ki Shem Av Mekabun Keneged bechinas Taamim Kenisker, which said that before. The Ak, which is from this area, which we're calling the Karkafta, which is head down to his ears. Don't forget it has madregos in it, which are the asmab. It has its own asmab. So there's an asmab of the Av canal. Shehim Tanta, also the same thing. You could say this is the Tanta of that area. That is the Taamim have a Tanta. But the Fizeh of the Hoyitzarak of Rad the Faret, Heich Heim Mischalkim. So this is an anatomy lesson, and he wants to show that how it is, in fact, that this is divided up into 4 different aspects of Tanta. It's not just we're saying that it's just Av, but it also has this other quality, which is the Tanta. Amnam lo nisboyer kan inyan zet, so we're not really explaining this. But this place, the area from the ears going upward to the Karkafta, the top of the head, we don't talk about it. And particularly, because in the midst of what he's saying, be'inyan the Karkafta, the Ak, you start talking about an aspect of the top of the head of Ak, which refers to his ear. Here's the hair on the top of his head. Now, we haven't really talked about the hair on the top, the hairs on top of anything, but here he just dropped that in. And as I told you before, you're learning language here, and what's coming out is that the Rav and Rebbe Shimon, when you read the Zohar in different places, there's a lot of name dropping. In other words, as you're reading along, he brings in as an idea, like for this. Like, for example, the saros on the head of the Karkafta of this line, which has been covered over by this masach, which means that there's some kind of hair projecting upwards at that place. We don't talk about it. And so also, we're not going to talk about that. We're not going to talk about the hut that's inside of Ak. We don't talk about this hut of the Ein Sof. So therefore he's talking generally here. It's a location issue. So we're not going to start getting into all of the different madrigas. We know that in the, let's say the Av here that we're talking about, from the Karkafta to the or Taamim, which we saw the Tanta of that area. We're not going to start talking about where it's located and what's involved with it. Number Zion.
Okay.
Any questions so far? I mean, this is all factual, informational stuff, and it's not in the way that you're used to learning. So when we're learning din, what's what we call learning din. And we're really trying to go get to something very concrete. So we're trying to understand the din, how to apply the din. This is not doing that here. What he's doing is he's working on an anatomical structure, which he's going to do. And he's going to bring in new words and new ideas that expand because you're dealing with infinity. So he says, number Zion, he said, V'hine afal pi she'anu korim mechanim knuyim. So we have different kinds of names, he says. Let me get this lined up a little bit for a second. And incidentally, quite a few people listen to this shir. You were reading the last 2 times, so you have a little bit of an audience here. So he says, let me see what that last line was. He says, so v'hine afal pi she'anu korim mechanim knuyim elu kogon Adam Rishon Adam. Excuse me. Here's words that we use. We use the word Adam, Rosh, Aznayim, and Nayim, Kiyotze B'Shachar Knuyim. So all of these different anatomical names, let's say. He says, Hine Einem Rak L'Shakek L'Se'od, only to quiet the ear, because you start out to this, and you're going to be in absolute outer space. As you see, that this has what is this Tanta about? What is this Asma about? What's it all about? Well, we don't know. So what he's going to do, though, he's going to tie it to an anatomical lesson. So from that, we can be able to have some basis of being able to understand the location in our sense, because we're up and down, basically right and left. That's our world. We have to find it. So he says, the sheyuv, so it's just to quiet the ear, the question of what's going on here. So therefore we put these names on it. We're going to say that there's a karkafta, and there's hairs, apparently, that aren't the karkafta, which we're not going to talk about, but we mentioned the ears. Now we're going to talk about the eyes, and the nose, and the mouth, just for example, in the head of Ak. Because the secretness, the hiddenness of these things, in came Sark the Varb if they ma anim bechanim bekinuyim kagon aznayim v'ranayim shemetochim yotzim ha'oras and hagnuzim b'soch Ak. So he says that we start using these words, like, for example, the ears and the eyes and the nose, things like that, and there's supposed to be openings in the head of Ak that allows the light to come out, hagnuzim b'soch Ak, that are hidden inside of Ak. Before I should call the Kinuyim, so all of these different names, Haim Rak B'derek Malsha Ba'alma, so this is what we call a disclaimer. He wants to make sure there is also other people who have gone through CHAIM. And the first time I went through the Matak Midrash, and the Matak Midrash is very careful to continue to make disclaimers so that we understand we're not talking about a human being or something that is just the physical qualities that we do, but nonetheless, there is a template here that he's building. That's not what we're talking about. Now, where you really start seeing this is in the Olam Hatzilus Lamata. So again, we haven't really discussed Hatzilus, and we know we played around with the idea of Etzel and try to get an idea of that. But there is an Olam called Hatzilus. And an olam is a whole hidden set of lights and how they work. And then going down to olamos that are lower than that, more physical than that. And so how do we call this? Well, the rich is generally speaking the concept of the Kesser, which would be the very top. So it's from the arich, the tzilos, and going downward. Ki misham ve'elach yesh bechinas partzef, because once you get to a rich, you have a concept of a partzef. Now partzef is, like there's a partzef panim. like it's like a face. But here it really means a partzuf is really, I think I said this to you before, is a system that processes light from the top to the bottom. And as it's processing the light, it's mismayat the light. The light has to be made more physical, and that only can be done if you can filter the light. And here we're talking about the first filter, which is Ak. When you talk from Atzilus and going upwards, parts of Klal. There is no parts of, no concept of parts of, and we will be studying that. Rock the shakek as ozin, but only because of quieting down the ears in order making it acceptable. That we start using these kind of names like ears, nose, and throat like that. So now he's telling you an anatomical part. That if you looked at Ak, he's going to have a belly button. And that belly button is actually a kind of an opening. We'll talk about it maybe later on. So he says it's a kind of an opening. But at that point is where Olam Atzilus starts. So I think, I don't know if we mentioned it before, but between this place, which is the belly button of Ak, and the top of the head of Ak, is a long distance. And over here, we're going to talk about the Ozen Chotim Peh, that is, the Ozen, that's a phrase we're going to get, it's called Achap, but we're going to get that in spades later on. He says that those parts are parts of the head. So between, whereas in the head and down to its Tzilos, what's in between? So in other words, just look at yourself and you see where your eyes are located and your nose and your mouth, and then look down to your belly button. There has to be something in there, but he says there's no partsuf in there. So he said, the reason for this, who kaven sha'olam b'chatzila tekiloso he metiba the ak of the mother, since it begins at the belly button of Ak, boven parts of a rishon shebechatzila, so it comes like this, that the very first parts of a Atzilus, which is known as the parts of a Erech Anpin, or he spells it out, it's called Erech Anpin, Shehu Kesed Atzilus, which is the crown of Atzilus, the very top of Atzilus. And Mishama Lamata Rabyesh Hete de Daber. Now from that position, for the belly button of Ak, we can start looking at these things more clearly. Why can we look at them more clearly? Because they're more clear. They're more physical. Because before that, remember, we had this, which you mentioned, the concept of Olam is really the concept of Helam. So when we're dealing with the Lomos and things like that, there are different kinds of hiddennesses that you couldn't be able to see, not really be able to diagnose them in detail, until you get to Atzilus. You can't really reach that area, it's not that understandable. But he's going to tell us some things, there's some Lomos in there. But the Yos Ne'elam Mahod, and the fact that it's so completely hidden, let me get this down here. Ein Sham Heter Dibar, so there's no Heter. Masha Metzida Shemechanim Shem Sham Kenuyim Shonim, we see over there that there are many Kenuyim. There's just a marshal to be able to give us some idea of what we're doing. Once again, from our bodies, we can see God. So, how is it going so far?
Good. I mean, it's like a lot, it gets talking about a lot of different new things, and not a lot of new words.
That's right. It's new words. Well, the good thing about the new words is you don't have to spend time memorizing them. He's going to use them over and over and over again. He's introducing you to them, and by the time you get a little bit through this, you're going to have a whole new vocabulary, so that you could use for other things. Number test, let's see how we're doing time-wise. We're open. We got lots of time. Now let's take a look at the ears now. He said that from the ears of Lamala, you can't, we don't talk about it. But from the ears of the Mata, he said, Naskil, Levire, Beketzer, Nimrats, we go through this quick. Daki, Minachaznaim, Lamata, Maskil, the Shem Sag. This is where the Sag starts. So now he's saying that the line, which we understand is the line of the Ein Sof, covered over by this Ak, actually the Ak itself has different gradations. So we see from the very top, by the mouth of Ak, let's say, so to speak, that's the wrong word. Let's just say the top of Ak is very close to the opening of the Ein Sof Baruch Hu, though it warrants in a line. So, but Sag already is further away from that. So he said, Maskil Shem Sag Shabo, Ukuvar, and this boy, we've already explained this. Higam hu kala batamim nekudas tagging gnosis. So we said before, we said that in the Taamim there was a tanta in the Taamim, but we're not dealing with the Taamim. We're only dealing with sag. Sag is from the ears and going downwards. Kavar nizbar ki gam hu kala batamim nekudas tagging gnosis. So it is a tanta within the sag. Kavar nizbar. You're still with me, right? Kavarn is bar.
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. The Kavarn is bar shebebechinas akarkafta ak hu shem av ein medabrim bo klal. So this part of ak, we're not going to talk about this at all. We always said that. Amna bebechinas aznaim the ak ad the tibor, but when you talk about there into the tibor, bevayar rab bekitzer nemrats, or min a tibor the mata mivoyach rab arichos. There he's really going to get into it, because there's when they're going to talk about atzilus. But before we can get to Atzilus, we're really in this area between the head of Ak, going down to the belly button. We said that. Ak min the mata maskil shem saga kolel. This is the general sag, which is going to mean, what does he mean by kolel? He means that it has an asmab inside of the sag. For Haznayim Bapratas Nekroim Shem of the sag. So let's say the ears themselves. The ears are a really important place. The ears themselves is where you find the Shem of the sag. That's the top part of that section. Shravi Shem Sag Atman Nechloch La'ar B'Shemos. It's going to be an asmab of the sag. V'chein al zera derek Haznayim Nekroim B'chinas Taamim V'Nekudos. The Nekudos would be the Taamim. So the part would be the Taamim of the Nekudos. Why the Nekudos go with sag? He's going to explain that better, or maybe that was it. Any question about that? Going too fast?
Is there? No, I don't know if he wants to explain this, but I guess the question is like let's say, does when he's using the anatomical structure to describe these things and like the formation of them, is there like a inherent, I guess, like a deeper shot as to why it specifically uses the name Oznayim? Or it's just using a muscle for the structure of something?
Yeah, I'm not really sure I got what your question is. He could use whatever words he wants. And you can make up any words that you want. But these are the words that he wants to use. So, yeah, go ahead. Let's try to perfect the question.
Right. I guess what I'm asking is when we say Oznayim with relation to the asmav, like that the Oznayim is the part that the Oznayim and above is representing Av, and the Oznayim and below is representing Sag.
That's very good.
So the question, I guess, is like, could he have used any, like, is there a specific reason why he's using anatomical words to describe these things?
I told you.
Let's say we would know all about like a tree. Could he say like the top of the tree and the middle of the tree and the bottom of the tree?
Well, he could have said that, but he didn't.
Is that specific?
Well, the thing is that you're reading the words of the Uri. He's actually the master. He's the teacher. So he says, if you want to understand the origin of reality in which you live, then this is the path. And these are the words. Yes, he could have used a tree analogy, which he might do some other places, but that's a metaphor. So he says this is metaphoric to a great extent, but the fact is that there are openings in this Ak. So we know in the level that comes, there is a level here. There's a border of some sort, and perhaps the best way to look at it is as there is a cylinder which is called Av. And this cylinder runs all the way the whole length of Ak. And this cylinder covers over the light of the Ein Sof. That's the Taamim, also known by that. So then imagine that at a certain point, which is, he says, from the top of this cylinder to a certain point, which he's calling the ears, because these are all, right, he says these are metaphoric names, but it's the first point that it'll run into where there's going to be an opening, we're going to call it the ears. Then after that, we're going to have another opening at the nose. And then after that, we're going to have another opening at the eye, at the mouth. So you say, well, wait.
Are these metaphors going to be similar in other ways, in more ways than just the location on a human body?
Well, what would that? Well, we're really talking.
I guess the example would be. Yeah, sorry.
I was going to say, what are we really talking about? We're talking about us, right? We're the ones that are talking about it. So therefore, by using a tree example, it's not really going to work for us so well, because we're not trees. We're people. And we're people with physical qualities, is that we have an oz and chot and peh. We have that. So he says, actually, let's just take what he says. That in this covering over the light of the Ein Sof, the line of the Ein Sof, there are openings. And the first one, he says, at the very top of the line, down to the level which we're going to call the ears. And from now on, we're going to call it the ears, okay? And he's going to talk about the ears. And then he says there's a line that goes there. Then there could be another line, another level that's going to start, let's say, at the nose and then at the mouth. All of these different places. And he's going to show you this in different ways. But like I say, what you want, and beginning students want, is you want to get something deterministic about this, and so that we can understand what it is. But it's not so deterministic like that. You're not going something big to something small. You're going to something unbelievable to something that's also unbelievable. So that's what, something like that. So let's go on. I want you to just learn the anatomy. That's all we're doing now.
Okay.
But down number 10, number yud. V'daki la'olam atamim v'anekudos. Okay. There's some interference on the line. V'daki la'olam v'atamim v'anekudos nechlokin l'shlosh cholukos. The truth is that the tamim and the nekudos are divided into 3 parts. Now he's talking about the ones, the tamim and the nekudos that we know. Ki yesh b'chinas tamim nekudos lo al gabe ha'oz. So let's take about the letter. So he mentioned, let's see, just tamim and nekudos, and then the tagim go along with the letter. They're really part of the letter, and then the letter itself. That's so he doesn't mention those two. Ki yesh b'chinas tamim nekudos lo al gabe ha'oz. V'chein yesh l'matach min ha'oz, also down below the letter. V'chein be'emsa ha'oz, also in the middle. Now we're talking about what? We're talking about tamim. So that's how you can mention. He's going to say them. Which ones? So let's talk about the ears. Where that opening is, which we're calling the ears now, there's going to be the concept of that's where the sag starts, the iznayim. There's going to be tamim and nekudos there. So let's see what he says. He says, Bir harab bechinas aznayim ki tamim the nekudos. It's going to be the ears are going to be the top part of the nekudos. The kudos are what? They go along with the name sag, because sag and the kudos go together. Za'ak bechinas atamim, but the kudos atzman, also the tamim and the kudos themselves, mischalkos the pratos the shlosh cholukos. That's something we know. Shahara yeshnam tamim the kudos elyoni, because there are those who are considered up above the letters. Kagon, he says hatamim in the crime pashta and zarka and revi. Those are written above the letters. Over the kudos, he nekudos a cholim. So in sounds, or the what we call the vowels, there are those that are up above. Say for example the cholim, shehim ala osius, v'yeshnam tamim in the kudos shehim be'emsa osius, and then there are tamim and the kudos that are in the middle. He said could go on the tamim psak and makaf. He said but the kudos who malafim and the kudos it's called the which is the dot. Who Nekudim be'emsa could go on like this. They call this what do they call it? Shurak Vov. A lot of places. Right. Because v'yesh tamim but Nekudim aim tachas osis, and there's other ones that are underneath the letters. Could go on the darga and the tabir like that. Over the Nekudas, the Nekudas, you also have the komats and the patach and the sag segel, etc. All of those are down below the letters. Below the letter. Yeah. So the light that is inside, and that's the light of the Ein Sof. Now this is really the answer to your question. They're openings, but we're calling them by these names. And it's more than that. We have these openings too. We have the same ones. So he
Right.
says, so Yatsa L'chutz Derek called the Nekudim and his Karim L'mala B'drosh there. Hina Hevel Yotzim in a Rosh. So he says a postulate. He says there's Hevel that comes out of this Rosh. In other words, through the structure of the membrane that covers the Ein Sof Baruch Hu, there's a leakage. Derek Nikvir Ha'Sa'ara Shalo. They come out through the openings of the hairs on the top of the head of this Adam Kadmon.
Right.
But he says, and the reason why he could drop this in now, I don't know if you remember it, is because in Eric Anpen, there are hairs on the top of the head that we could talk about, and we do. In the RABBI and the OTZROT, that they go into great detail on what's going on in the head of Eric Anpen. We're not talking about Eric Anpen. Eric Anpen is basically the core. It is Etzilus, but we're not talking about Etzilus. We're talking about Adam Kadmon. So he drops the name in over here, and later on you'll see the name. It'll come up again, and you'll have a little background. Now I would say that from experience, that going over this many times, like if you had a chance to teach this to somebody else, you're going to see new things that you're not getting right now. That's how this actually works. Kavar Amarno La'el, because it is the system of the Uri, and it's all encompassing. Let's go on. Kavar Amarno La'el, we already said above Shein on the Rishayim Klal is Asek Boats, and we're not going to deal with that area at all. That is inside, what's going on inside of Ak. Naskil L'daber Me'hachevel, but the first one we can talk about is there's some kind of a vapor chayotze bebechinas asnayim shu bebechinas shem sag. So there's a vapor that comes out of the ears. Now, do you know that there's a vapor coming out of your ears? 1 second, let me just see. Every time I hit the camera here, I'm trying to record this. It tends to just stop everything, and that's a real pain. Okay, let's go. So it didn't. But I hit it, but it's okay. So I'm not
familiar. Like you're just asking, I'm not familiar with any hevel that comes out of my ear. At least
he's going to prove it. He's going to prove it to you. So
okay.
So so he's going to come back and explain this. So only way that we can understand it is that there is something that comes out of it. And that's what we're going to be dealing with for a while now. So through the hairs on the top of the head, there's a shefa that comes out of it. So there's a concept over here of the beard of Eric Anpen, which is going to be coming later, like I say. And he's going to describe hairs. They're like tubes, let's say straws. It has a very, very thin, very narrow opening in it. It's a tube within a tube, or it's an opening within a tube. And from it, the shefa that is going to go out into the lower worlds is going to have to go through those tubes. Now, one of the functions of the tubes is that they're narrow, he says, and that means that there's a hismatus of the light that comes through there. But we said before, if we're talking about Ak, we're not talking about his hair, his beard, or anything like that. For the this fact, we don't talk about it at all. Once again, when we talk about the hairs and the karkafta the Ak, which is the ava klali. From this, we're not permitted to talk of Gavar be'ana de Masha Yeshlo Rishus Ledaber, who rock bebechinis or hayotzim in the chaznayim the Ak of the Mata. The Rav Maskil the Bayer say the Yitzias Oris the Ak Minik the chaznayim Shalo Shahu Shem Av the Sag, which is the top of the Sag, the cylinder called Sag. Now, what I was going to say was that if you looked at it in a cylindrical form, which I don't have that to show you right now, you would see that this cylinder surrounds the cylinder of Av from the ears downward. Okay, Av is above the ear all the way up to the top. In other words, the top of everything is Av. We don't talk about it. When you get to the ear, though, there's another cylinder there, another light. Okay, so that's just something you could picture, but actually we have pictures of that. and I just don't have them handy.
I actually looked at that book that
there
you have,
go.
the CHAIM Haim L'Mitzayim. Is that what it's called?
Yeah. Eitz Chaim L'Mitzayim. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think I know which picture you're referring to. There's a lot of pictures in the book, and most of them I don't understand what they're talking about.
Right, me neither.
But I think the one with this, there's one that was a little bit similar to the picture that he had, the graph that he had a little bit earlier.
Okay.
A lot more complex though. On page Ches.
Okay, we can talk about it.
Blown up very big, and it has much more detail on it.
Okay. All right. So where did I get to? Number Yud Aleph? Yud Beis.
Beis.
Yud Beis. Okay. V'ne'emar. So it says like this: Ki hinei derech nikver haznaim shabo yotze or mipnimios Adam Kadmon. So we're going to try to find out how it is that you could have a vapor coming out of your ears because there's none coming out of your ears. Upashut hu b'tzeisa l'chutz. So it's simple like this: when it comes out through the masach on the opening that is this ak misavik etzatz, it gets a little thicker. Once again, that thicker means here mismatus of the light. V'nimsa ki ha'or shenisher b'benimios Adam Kadmon, the light that's on the inside, hu yoser godol bezecha be'or yoser b'mena l'chutz. It's a bigger light than what goes out because it's the original pure light. Ha'or b'shebenimios ak I efsher l'siku klal ki hu min ha'or ein so, because it comes from the light of ein so. Ach ha'or ha'yotze l'chutz derek nikver haznaim, but the light that comes out of there, nitin l'chasigu, there is something tangible there. Kevin should be tziyatzo derek aguf da'ak. So now you could picture it in your mind as it's going out from the goof of ak. Naasa al yedei zeh masach hamavdil bein ha'or ha'penimi da'ak. So as it goes out, you have to go through the membrane, which is ak. It's going to make a difference between what's on the inside of ak, the bein ha'or ha'yotze b'chutz la'ak. V'az ha'or nis'avik etzatz. Now you're just saying it's a tremendously infinite light, let's say relative to us, but it's slightly variation different from what's inside. Second hand already.
Right.
Okay, let's see. We have 3 minutes, and let's see if we can do number Yud Gimel. Okay. Now he just brought us a new idea. He said the translation is that this light that comes out is even greater than, let's say, like the walls of the body of Ak. Aval pashut hu shahahevel ha'or ha'yotze l'chutz derek nikver ha'guf da'ak kagon ha'or ha'yotze min ha'chaznayim ha'choten and the pev ha'anayim. We're going to get all of those things. We're going to have to deal with those. Hu yoser godol me'atzem ha'guf. It's much greater than the body itself. Shu ha'kli da'ak, which is that membrane we're talking about. I mean, that's my word, membrane. From the Aznayim, Achotim, V'chapapeh, Shal Adam Tachton, Heim Yoser Dakim V'ruchnim Miguf Adam Atzma, because the physical structure of the covering is more physical. Kain Gam Ha'ora, so that you deal, in other words, the lights that you're talking about are very, very infinite. Is that the right word? Close to infinity. So it's the goof of ak is more dense, so the lights are much more refined. Nishmas means penimius of alak b'malakli shalo, and not from the kli. It's not the light that's radiating from his body, but it's actually light that was inside the body and came out. It's clothing. Just like us, we ourselves, within us, in the penimius of ourselves, there is an or, the or of the light of the Ein Sof. So here's a little variation on the word or, which is important. He said the ha'or ha'yotze the chutz hu ha'ara. It's a secondary light, or I call it a radiance or a glow. Hayotze min neshama atzma, which comes from what's penimius, but it's not the penimius. So certainly, it's really a chelik of the actual essence of the light of the Ein Sof. My words. It's it's much more refined than the body that was covering the light of the Ein Sof. So now we find over here there are 3 different Midregas in Ak. Ha'echad hu or gadol hanimsach b'binimim shel Ak. Shuhu nishmas Ak. We use that word now. We see the word neshama, what it means. V'hu or chut ha'ein sof hamislavish b'soch gufa da'ak. And this is the light of the chut, that is that chut of the light of the Ein Sof, which is clothed inside of the gufa da'ak. K'neshama t'toch ha'guf. Zechav or anena musad klav. We can't reach that light. We can't talk about it. Hasheni, the second one, who ha'or hayotze l'chutz derek Nekudim da'ak, that comes out through the Nekudim. It's a radiance that is coming, a secondary light, but it's coming from the light of the Ein Sof. We could talk about it. Because why it became sticker. And he wants to tell you something, that there's a wall in between them. That's the Madrega that's in between the light that comes out and the light that's inside. That's called the Guf Shel Ak. Because through it, as a result of it, having to get through that, you have to, it thickens the light. Hayotz mipinimius the chutz, vuha nikwa kli biyachas the oras ak. So that is what's called a kli. So relative lights. So you have 3 different types there.
Can I just ask a question?
Yeah.
The Ur Hapnimi, it seems like that comes out also, but that's just, it's like too sublime, I guess, for us to talk about it.
What he said is that the light that comes out is called a ha'ara. So it's not the essence of the light that's inside, which we can't describe and don't have a way to be able to even handle it. We could try to think about it, but not to talk about. We don't talk about it. Then there's the wall that has to get through the light. If it's going to go out, it's going to have to deal with the wall, the membrane itself of Ak, which is, he calls it the Gufa da Ak.
Right.
And as a result of going through that, it's not the Gufa da Ak. It's going to be a light that's very similar to the light on the inside of Ak, which is the light of the Ein Sof, but not. It's less than that, meaning It's more thick than that. So here we have the idea that everything that is greater is less physical, and everything that is lesser is going to be more physical. And here we are talking, we are the ones that I am talking and you are talking and listening and doing what we do. We're physical. So therefore we have to try to make it work out for ourselves. And this is the Rabb's way of teaching us.
Okay, shkach.
Yeshakach to you, Rabbi. And listen, it's nice that you're able to look at that book.
Yeah, I took this one from your sender.
Which one? This one. But I meant the CHAIM Nimtzaim. I have one also. It's a rare book. It's a rare book. And so I got 2 of them. From Beagle Eisen. Yeah, I'm supposed to get us all a the new version. What do you call it?
You should know, I ordered the tiv. I ordered it from the other guy, the Svarim Center guy, and he told me he got lost in the mail. He doesn't know where it went. I'm
a little worried about him. Okay, I need to talk to him about it. I've been really lazy about it. It's Beagle Eisen has the book that Dr. Jimmy has, and I just got to get around to it. My daughter got engaged last night. It was a big. Yeah, that's right. Not my daughter, my granddaughter. My daughter. And they had a big party. I should have told you about it. There weren't too many yeshiva kolo guys. There weren't any. I don't know. Everybody's in probably learning, but at any rate, yeah, that was last night. Tonight we're going to a wedding. I hope that things will settle down.
Okay, thank you for taking your time out of your busy schedule.
My pleasure. Absolutely. Thank you very much for learning with me. Call to.
Okay, thank you.